I don't think there's any other.
Being recorded. I'm sorry.
Well, this is it. This is to date the biggest episode of Gold Derby Horses that we have ever done.
George is gonna have a lot of fun editing this.
Can't wait. And yes, I am George. Going around the corner one at a time, we have Tristan French Tano.
French Chano here. Best teeth in the game.
Brett Scott.
What up?
Jared Rocha.
Hi everyone, what's up?
Jasmine Graham.
Hello. This is going to be so chaotic.
Multi-time previous guest, Sam Meltzer.
Hello.
One-time previous guest, Andre Hall.
Hey, what's busting, y'all?
And making his Gold Derby horse's debut, Lester Leong.
Hello.
Okay. Everybody, it is our top 10 movies of 2021. 8 people are about to talk about their favorite films of the year. This episode is going to be very unhinged. Just an FYI, it's going to be very unhinged. And
No,
what
I
we're
think
going to
it'll be
do?
quarterly. I think we'll be fine.
No, it's gonna be unhinged. It's gonna be more unhinged than Elmo getting mad at a pet rock. Just
Rocco's
saying.
just a rock.
So we're all gonna take turns with our honorable mentions. Then we're all gonna do 6 to 10, and from there we'll do our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 individually. So.
Just like they did on iCarly.
So, because there's a possibility that she has to leave halfway through the podcast, I am going to let Jasmine go first.
So am I just saying my 10 to
Honor-
6?
Your honorable mentions.
Oh,
Start with your honorable mentions.
My honorable mentions will be The Last Duel, which has been so shafted this year. It's a poor movie.
Yeah.
It's poor movie. In the Heights, also shafted. There's a pattern here. The Green Knight and Spider-Man, because why not?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lester, you're the first timer guest here. You go.
Okay, I have a few right here. I'm just gonna list them all rapid fire. Cruella, Shiva Baby, Malignant, Luca, Spencer, Dune, Flea, Coda, The Last Duel, Mitchell's vs. the Machines, The Rescue, Pig, and Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And also, wait, I forgot to mention, Sing 2.
Let's go.
Yes.
baby.
Yes.
Okay, so for the rest of these 4, I don't know what order to go in. I'm doing a picker wheel because I'm spontaneous like that. So first up for the honorable mentions is
Oh goodness. All right. So my first honorable mention is going to be the Wheel of Fantasy and Fortune. I haven't finished it yet, but it was great so far. So. And then my ones after that, I'm gonna say, I usually do like an alternative 10, so this would be the 10. If the 10 that I have now did not exist, this would be my 10. All right. So I got Cruella. I have the greatest film actually of the year, but it's just too good to get on the list. Godzilla versus Kong, 9 Days, Coda, The Sparks Brothers, The Humans, Mass, Pig, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Petite Maman is so close. It's like number 11. Any other year would be in the 10. This year was insane. We'll get into it.
all right. And next is Andre.
Let's go, baby. So actually only have one honorable mention.
Oh my
And I just
God.
passed by a billboard for this, like giant. So I question if they were going to do awards choice for this, like not try to get it nominated for Best Picture. But what I love about this film is it's so risky. It has balls, and it's clearly doesn't care if it gets nominated for Best Picture or not. That's right. That's Clifford, the Big Red Dog, directed by Walt Becker. So I do technically have this at my number 69 of the year. However, that is not a fault on this movie. That actually is a commendment of how great this movie is. 69 for me, kind of better than number one. So that's why I've got Clifford as my best honorable mention. It's just like I don't want to put it in number one because it's above that. So great acting performances all around. Darby Camp, Jack Whitehall, Ian, just a phenomenal young cast. Isaac Wang, or Wang, my bad, as phenomenal first performance right there. Wait, actually second performance because he was in Good Voice. And we got some of the older actors coming back. John Cleese, Tony Hale. So yeah, this is one of the greatest films of last year. I do like how they don't reveal everything about this movie and the secrets of Clifford. So that makes me very spicily invested for the upcoming sequel that has been announced. So yeah, that's my honorable mention, Clifford,
Yeah, I
which is
really still
not
need to
really
see that
even
one 'cause
honorable
it kinda
mention.
looks
It's just
amazing.
like, it's like one of the best movies of last year. So
Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
And next for honorable mentions is Tristan.
Cool. So my honorable mentions, I'll go with Don't Look Up, Belle, Petite Maman, Coda, Last Night in Soho, The Humans, Try Harder, West Side Story, Sing 2, Belfast, and Nightmare Alley.
I didn't hear
Whoa.
Clifford.
Up
And
next is Jared.
Okay, so I'm gonna do kind of the alternate 10 kind of like Brett that kind of make it on the list. I have Eternals because I appreciated Marvel kind of taking a little risk. And The Heights was good summer fun and it was a musical, so of course I loved it. Ron's Gone Wrong was a really sweet look at friendship and technology that I think is pretty underrated. Barb and Star Go Vista Del Mar had some of the best production design of the year, and it was just flat out fun time at the movies, and it's a great group watch. Spider-Man No Way Home, because of the Spider-Man No Way Home, it's a pop culture phenomenon. It's great. Power of the Dog, I love some homoerotic sexual tension in movies. 9 Days was a fascinating look at the afterlife and whatnot, and really stood with me. Sing 2 was just a blast in the theater. Green Knight was such a unique theatrical experience. Made me feel like I was in a dream that I didn't know if it was a good dream or a nightmare. And last but not least, Last Night in Soho for Edgar Wright, just pulling this time traveling masterpiece. Yeah.
All right. Who's next? Let's see. All right, Sam, go for it.
You're gonna hate me, but I changed something.
Okay.
You could still keep the tallies the same, but my honorable mentions are I think how many do I have? I have six honorable mentions. They are King Richard, West Side Story, Mass, Luca, and then two documentaries that I think should be, I don't know, they're about really popular figures, but I feel like no one's really talking about them. And they are Julia and the Rita Moreno documentary. I recommend watching them both. They are both really wonderful.
All right. So then it comes around to me. I'm going last. So first of all, I want to give a shout to On the Count of Three, which premiered at Sundance this year, but is coming out in 2022. So it will be on my 2022 list. You can expect to see that.
Yeah. Oh, can I just add in that Strawberry Mansion for me will be on next year's list, probably at number 1. We'll see.
So then from there, we get 25 Memoria, 24 I'm Your Man, 23 Parallel Mothers, 22 Passing, 21 Summer of Soul, 20 Teton, 19 Shiva Baby, 18 Summit of the Gods, 17 The Novice, 16 Mass, 15 9 Days, 14 The Green Knight, 13 The Humans, 12 The French Dispatch, and 11 Tick Tick Boom.
Adding a correction here. George was unable to record this part himself, so he put it in a TTS generator. Laugh at him. Anyway, The Tragedy of Macbeth is now number 12 on the list, which bumps everything else down. So now you get a top 26 and not a top 25.
So,
Wow.
yeah, that's my 25 through 11. And now we get to Jasmine 10 to 6. Just go at it.
I didn't number my list. Oh fuck. All right, so my 10 is No Time to Die. My 9 is Dune. My 8 is Mass. My 7 is Suicide Squad, and my 6 is Flea. There's my bottom 5.
Okay, that's interesting.
Please note during this section that I did not expect Jasmine to just list her 10 to 6 the way that she did. I had assumed that she would go into detail. Please do not take my reaction the wrong way, even though I'd like to assume you probably won't.
We don't necessarily have to do it like that, I guess. I don't know. Lester, are you gonna talk a little bit more about your picks or what? Or are you just gonna list them all? I don't care.
I'm just gonna talk like 1 or 2 sentences about them. So my number 10 is The Power of the Dog, because you know, it's I didn't expect to like it that much because considering I don't really like westerns, but like Jane Campion made something really like powerful, pun intended, from it. Number 9 is Spider-Man No Way Home. I don't think I need to say why it's so good, because like it's such a feel good like fan servicey movie that actually has like delivers on the stakes in the drama. My number 8 is West Side Story, and I'm very surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did, and I think it's actually better than the original. My number 7 is Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. I haven't seen Drive My Car yet, but if this is any indication, I think Drive My Car is going to be a masterpiece. And my number 6 is Petite Maman because Céline Sciamma.
All right, Brett.
Okay. So now we are on to my top 10 movies of the year. So number 10 is going to be one of my favorite directors' latest film, and that is The French Dispatch. I think this is aesthetically like everything that Wes Anderson does at his best, at his prime, to like the highest extent. I think if you're not into Wes Anderson and his sensibilities, this will be absolute homework. But since I eat it all up, I loved every second of this thing. And it is a lovely tribute to journalism. And it's also just a tribute to like weird little quirky stories that make life worth living every day. So The French Dispatch is a great movie. Number 9 was actually my most anticipated movie of the year. And it's very shocking that it's only number 9, but I think that this proves to show that like this year was like really, really great for film. And there's a lot of movies that made a significant impact on me. But my number 9 is Last Night in Soho, because it like I know that people are like mixed on aspects of this movie, and I get that. But for what I wanted from it, which was like Edgar Wright's take on the Gallo genre and like Dario Argento, I think it completely delivers on giving that weird, campy atmosphere of those films while adding an Edgar stylish sensibility, but also having a warmness and heart for the characters. And it's a really weird balancing act that I think actually ends up working extremely well. And it's beautiful, it's lavish, it's stylish, it has so much personality. I loved it. I was just enamored by it, honestly. My number 8 was a movie that I was kind of obsessed with for a few months. It actually really made an impact, and it's my favorite, probably like blockbuster, comic book, whatever of the year, and that is The Suicide Squad. James Gunn is like one of my favorite filmmakers working right now, and I think his contributions to big budget film has really been a really cool thing to see. I think he adds personality and flair to his movies, and I love the fact that like The Suicide Squad, outside of just being a really fun movie, is a really damning critique of American imperialism and what our systems will do to cover up their tracks, and even kind of a comment on the death penalty in general. The fact that we have a suicide squad, that we think these people's lives are less significant because they've made mistakes, and I think James Gunn actually ends up making The Suicide Squad, which was a terrible 2016 movie, and making it actually a poignant statement about something. And I loved it. I saw it 4 times when it was out. It was great. My number 7 is Luca. Whenever Luca was first coming out, people were like, "This is like lower tier Pixar," and I think that's a really big disservice to what Luca actually is, which is a breaking of the conventional Pixar formula, which is something that I love. Pixar has meant a lot to me. It's kind of the dream to work there someday, but I really love that they're able to like make more of a Studio Ghibli-esque movie. And something I appreciated about it was that it had low stakes, but not only that, it wasn't like there was some twisted villain at the end, or the villain learned to be good or something like that. Like there was genuine character conflict that had to be resolved, and the issues at the end was the characters finding fulfillment in themselves, not necessarily the situation. And I think that's really important for kids to see, and it's probably something that I needed to see when I was younger. So it resonated a lot, and it's my favorite animated movie of the year. And my number 6 to round it out is West Side Story. Whenever I first heard that Steven Spielberg was making West Side Story, I was like, that's ridiculous. You know, Spielberg's my favorite director, but like within the last 10 years, he's made his political movies that haven't resonated as much with me personally. But this, I think, is his best movie since Jurassic Park, which I know is a huge take. But I think it has that whimsy and awe and excitement that Spielberg had for making movies 20 years ago. And it's just back. And like Lester said, I think it's significantly better than the original, which is saying a lot because Robert Wise is a genius. But I think what Spielberg did here was create the movie musical that captures the best of seeing something on stage for the first time. And I thought it was remarkable. And that is my 10 through 6.
Andre?
Nice. So wait, my 10 through 6, right? So yeah, number 10, I have Drive My Car. I saw it today. It's really good. But also tied for number 10 as well. I've got Sing 2, which they're both really
Yes.
good. They're low-key the same movie to me. So I'm not going to elaborate more on that. Going into number 9, I've got Shiva Baby. Probably the scariest movie I've seen just in general. Then I've got Cruella. Yeah, good movie. Very underrated. Probably the best Disney adaptation of anything. It's really unexpected and it shows a lot of creativity in it. Then I've got Dune. There was sand. I kind of liked that. And last but not least, I've got Licorice Pizza. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good movie.
Nice.
Yeah. That's what I have.
Sam.
Yes, I am well aware that I got the order mixed up. Now shut the fuck up.
Okay. Maybe putting this at number 10 isn't right because okay. my 10 of the year is Barb and Star, Go to Vista Del Mar. If we're being honest, this is secretly my number one. This is the film that I watched the most times out of any 2021 release. And
So
I
it's your
think,
Clifford.
yes, but not to the extent that you've brought it to.
Oh.
I think you're much more passionate about that film than I am about this. But yeah, I think this is the movie that I'll probably rewatch the most after 2021. It is just unhinged, chaotic, two middle-aged women being iconic for 2 hours. It is so fun. It is so colorful, so entertaining. Literally, most of the jokes land. I think it's incredible. My number 9 is Drive My Car. This is a really interesting kind of character study. I've never really seen a film that brought subtlety in such a internalized way, especially recently. I think it's so calm and actually rarely has such a boiling anger underneath. And I think it's really almost soothing, but also very melancholic, very, what's the word? I think it tells a very unique story without being showy about it. And I think that Hidetoshi Nishijima is my favorite leading actor performance of the year.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible. And then number 8, I have Coda. This is a movie that I've heard a lot of people say came off to them as a Hallmark or Lifetime channel movie. And I kind of get that, but I think it's sort of aware of that. I think it's trying to be this very sweet and heartfelt movie. It isn't really trying to be groundbreaking in any way. It's trying to give representation, tell a sweet, relatable story, and it does that. And I was very entertained. And I actually laughed a lot. I thought it was a lot funnier than I expected it to be. Then at 7, I have Shiva Baby. This movie was relatable and genuinely stressed me out a lot. I think it is genuinely a horror film in a lot of ways. So, and of course, it has amazing bisexual energy just radiating from it. And then my 6th of the year is Flea. This is among the most powerful films I've ever seen. It's maybe the best documentary I've ever seen. It is so creative and so interesting. Even though the story is so brutal and so heartbreaking, you never really want to stop watching it because of how intriguing it is. And I don't know if you've seen it, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the final moment of the movie left me speechless. So yeah, that's my 10 through 6.
Okay, my number 10 is Drive My Car. I know it's been mentioned a couple times. This is definitely, in terms of screenplay, I think it's the best written film of the year. It's got beautiful dialogue, very, very much a masterclass in writing. And I just love how slow this film is, but also it just kind of washes over you. It's like one of those experiences that you just have to go in and just, you have to kind of brace yourself for 3 hours, and it's very, very sad, but it's beautiful, and it's one of those movies that's gonna leave a lasting impact on you. My number 9 is actually a movie that I had in my honorable mentions, but I kept thinking about it for the past couple weeks, and I decided to slip it into my top 10, and that is Flea. I think Flea is the best documentary of the year, and honestly, one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. I love how the director is able to tell this really crazy and tragic story and use animation, and it's just like, I've never seen a documentary that has such a strong narrative. Like, the way that it tells its story is just so entrancing, and it's like just a really incredible movie. Also, it's got a great soundtrack. My number 8 would be Luca, which as Brett mentioned, I don't really understand why some people are saying this is middle tier Pixar. I really think it's one of their best in years. In fact, it might be my favorite Pixar movie since Inside Out. It's super colorful. It's got a simple narrative, but what I love about it is it's kind of similar to Studio Ghibli, where it's just a slice of life tale about kids growing up and learning lessons. And I just think it's a beautiful movie, and it really left an impact on me. Number 7 is Sean Baker's Red Rocket. Sean Baker is one of my favorite directors working today. I love how he tells these humanist stories and shines a light on communities that don't typically aren't typically represented in Hollywood. And he does that once again with Red Rocket. And this is the kind of movie that if it was directed by any other filmmaker, I don't think I would have connected with it nearly as much, just because of the character and the material. But I think Sean really brings his signature brand of humanity to this story. And it's funny, but it's also, I think it's got a lot of depth, and it's a movie that I can't stop thinking about. And my number 6 is a movie that really surprised me, one that I honestly didn't really expect to love all that much. And that is Lin-Manuel Miranda's Tick, Tick, Boom. I love the frenetic energy that he brings to it. And Andrew Garfield probably gives my favorite performance of the year. He plays this kind of genius with an existential crisis really well. And I think anyone who has a passion and is artistic is really going to relate to this, because it shows, sometimes you have a million ideas and you're not able to focus on one, and you just want to get your art out there. And I think it does a really great job of showing that, and the struggles of making it in a saturated field like Broadway. So yeah, that's my 10 through 6.
Hello everyone. My 10 movie of the year is The French Dispatch. I just saw this recently earlier today. It's still fresh in my mind. I really connected to kind of the love letter to journalism, and as someone who wants to be in that field and write about entertainment and whatnot, this was just something that really connected with me. Plus, I love just the pure imagination that Wes Anderson has with all his different stories and the visual looks. And in a world where it's so easy to feel bummed out that we might just get mostly superhero movies for the rest of our years, it's Wes Anderson comes to remind us that there's still a few creatives in Hollywood that are able to turn out stories like this. At number 9, I have Coda, just this really sweet and cute, heartwarming coming of age story that has some musical elements. So, it has my name all over it. It definitely bumped higher on rewatch, and just this entire cast just gels with each other, plus an honestly award nominating performance of Emilia Jones. It's just a story that will hopefully include more representation of the deaf community, and is a movie that proves why representation, especially in film, can be so impactful. This movie probably has opened so many doors to experiences that people will never know about and will be more aware of now thanks to Coda. At 8, I have Licorice Pizza. A little darker than I expected, but I still loved it in terms of just this madcap adventure. I loved not knowing where we were going to go next in this little California valley. And if Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman don't have Oscars by the time I'm 50, then we as a society have truly messed up. At number 7, we have Mass, which was this saw at Sundance. It's stayed in my mind ever since. Just these lines of dialogue, and particularly like the premise just is so great in terms of just two parents coming together, two sets of parents coming together after a tragedy, and just bare, raw human emotion laid out on screen, anchored by 4 performances by actors that it's just a movie that's just so well done. And it's just so awful how this award season has treated Mass and and I'm stealing this from Brett. He said first, so I'm giving all the rights to him. But yeah, it should honestly be in every high school a requirement that every high school should see before they graduate. Just the effects of your actions and your consequences that go long after you pass or whatnot. And then my number 6 is Dune. This is just an experience I'll always remember seeing in the theater in terms of just the epic scope that Denis Villeneuve created on the big screen. I think this is something that whenever we all have kids, we would be like, yeah, I saw Dune in theaters, and just like the Empire Strikes Back of our generation. It's this story with such a scale that Denis Villeneuve and his team spent so many years working on, and just to see all that hard work build to this and an even bigger and greater sequel, it's just something that we should celebrate, that we should accomplish, that the cinema has to offer.
Okay. So, I changed my top 10 slightly, kind of on a whim. But what it is now is my number 10 is The Power of the Dog. Everyone has already talked about this movie. It is the front runner for Best Picture. It is deserving of that status. It is a very pensive, methodical, meticulously crafted movie in every aspect of it. And it's captivating. It's brilliant. Jane Campion really does a phenomenal job with her direction and just how she really visioned the movie. It's a movie that has a very strong vision, and I love that about it. Benedict Cumberbatch is fantastic. Kirsten Dunst is also phenomenal. And Cody Smith-McPhee, I don't really see how that's a winning performance according to pretty much every single film critic, but he is great. The movie is gorgeously shot, and the sound work is phenomenal, and the score by Johnny Greenwood is fantastic. And I think that's one of the it's definitely one of the best movies of the year, and something that I think we should watch at least once sometime this year. Number 9 is Red Rocket by Sean Baker. I know how controversial this movie has seemingly become, but I thought it was very, very like I kind of laughed my head off during most of this movie. Simon Rex, I mean, this man, one hell of a casting choice, and he's hilarious, and I love the anxiety of his performance and just the chaos. Like, he is so like unhinged in this movie, and he's probably my pick for best actor this year. Susanna Sun is great in it as well. I love the writing from Sean Baker, and I mean, I think the movie just I kind of vibe with the movie. Number 8 is West Side Story, which I know I was a very big skeptic of the movie early on, but I can't lie to myself. It won me over in the end. I love the experience of watching this in a theater, and the cinematography and all the performances, except for one, but we don't talk about him. Ariana DeBose, sweeping Best Actress, deservedly, or supporting actress, excuse me. It's a musical. It's very, very niche, but it's so good, and it's an improvement on the original film. My number 7 is a movie that I think might honestly go up when I watch it again. But my number 7 is Drive My Car. This is just a movie that, for whatever reason, recently I haven't been able to stop thinking about. Like, for whatever reason, I just haven't been able to stop thinking about Drive My Car. It's really, really phenomenal, direction and acting and writing. It's in conversation for like the best screenplay of the year. Hidetoshi Nishijima is also really, really good in the role. Toko Miura and Masaki Okada are also phenomenal. And, the movie isn't, distinctly like visually phenomenal, but Ryosuke Hamaguchi directs this movie brilliantly. It almost plays out like a thriller in some ways, even though it's an emotional drama. And I think that tone works really well with the film, and I just really love that. And then number 6 is Flea, which is one of the most impactful movies I saw this year. One of the most impactful documentaries I've ever seen this year. Just the story of Amin brought me to tears like multiple times when I watched the film. The animation is stunning, and the way it uses the animation to tell its story and the colors and everything. I mean, for my money, this is easily the best animated movie of the year. I think it's the best animated movie in years. Not to compare the two, but I do think it is better than Spider-Verse and Inside Out and Soul and a bunch of
too.
other movies. I think it is a beautiful movie, and I love the sound work in it. The sound in Flea needs more recognition, and the editing as well. Flea is a phenomenal, poignant, powerful documentary. And if this doesn't win at least one Oscar, I am going to flip out. If it doesn't win at least one. Anyway, that's my 6 to 10. Jasmine, you have number 5 now.
All right. What is my number 5? My number 5 is Power of the Dog, which y'all have way too low. By the way, way too low.
Okay.
But
Spoiler alert, you will not be disappointed in me.
good, because the rest of y'all have it way too low. Yeah, I have it at number 5. I think this is like the third or fourth time this movie has been mentioned, but it's so well directed, and the fact that we're gonna have 2 women winning in a row in director, oh my god. Literally never could have imagined this like a year ago, but it's so well directed. And Cody Schmidt-McPhee, a lot of people really like underestimated his performance really early on. Like, remember when everyone thought Jesse Plemons was going to be
Oh yeah.
those are good times. Simpler times. I like the fact that we might have these 2 really like subtle performances that win, because it'll kind of show that you don't have to have these really loud, like boisterous performances just to always like win Oscars. And I liked it's always do love some good homoerotic undertones in the evening. And like what it says on like masculinity and everything. And I'm very excited to watch The Piano, which I have not watched actually. But that is my 5. Y'all have it way too low.
I have it at number 66. So
That's way too low.
It's almost at 69, isn't it? It's almost at
pretty
69.
close. Pretty close.
Okay, my number 5 used to be Petite Maman, but I thought about it and I kind of changed it at the last minute, and it's now Titan. It's
Ciao.
yeah, ka-chow. I think it's such a weirder movie than Raw, which is saying something. And like it's like a nice blend of like the elevated horror of A24 and like the B picture stock that you always see in the 80s. And it has some like horrifying moments, but like it's like balanced by a really surprisingly sweet story about 2 like lost souls connecting with each other, even though are we allowed to talk spoilers though?
Please don't.
Yeah, I think you forgot a major part of this movie, Lester.
Okay, I'm not. Wait, we're allowed to talk spoilers, right?
You know what? Go ahead. I don't care.
Okay, spoilers for Titan, because like the main character is like a serial killer, and it's kind of weird that we're supposed to like empathize with her, but Julia Ducournau did it and it's kind of crazy how she was able to pull it off. I watched this movie because like I watched it. I went out of my way to watch it. I even got a can of beer at the theater because that theater is so alcohol, and I got tipsy during the previews, but then the alcohol quickly wore off due to the shock. So like, and I couldn't stop thinking about it ever since. So it's my number 5.
All right. So my number 5 of the year was another movie that I feel like I've anticipated for like 5 years. So I'm really glad that it delivered, and that is Dune. I am a fan of the source material of Dune, and I was really hoping that they did something, better than Lynch's, even though I love you, Lynch. You're my
Daddy
favorite,
Lynch.
but, like, Daddy Lynch. We appreciate Lynch in this household.
Get real.
Anyways, so going into this, I just figured that like Denis Villeneuve, after what he did with Blade Runner 2049, was kind of the perfect choice to adapt Dune, and I was proven correct by that. I saw this opening night on the IMAX, and like one of the larger IMAXs, like not just your standard IMAX, like one of the biggest screens. Um, it's about an hour away from me, and that was maybe one of the most engrossing and capsulating movie going experiences I will ever have. It was overwhelming, and just the massive scale and scope of this movie was so cool. But I also think that it is able to tell a really interesting story about coming of age and having to line up with your parental unit, and like having to face your own responsibilities and feeling like burdens have been placed upon you even though you weren't even asked to be born. And I think that part of it resonated with me as well. And I think Paul Atreides was expertly played by Timothy Chalamet. I think it's his best performance to date, to be honest, because it could have been such a flat character, and yet I think there's a whole lot of pathos and humanity with Dune, which I think makes it even better than like Avatar, where outside the spectacle, there's really nothing much to latch onto. I think here, outside of the spectacle, people will continue to revisit it because there is a compelling story. And it's only part one. We get another part of this that's going to be probably even better. And so, like, Dune's just great. I loved it. And it completely, like, when I heard Denis Villeneuve was going to direct Dune, this is exactly the best result we could have gotten from that. So,
So my number 5 is my mass. So sorry. So sad. Okay, take that. Okay, this is a very serious movie. It's a really good movie. But it is also very hard talking about it without just spoiling it. But I will say I was really shocked of how hooked and enthralled in the story I was. It's literally just 4 people sitting in a room for 90 minutes talking, and yeah, very engrossing. And everyone else already mentioned what I wanted to say about it. It has like phenomenal performances, a really amazing script, really underrated, probably going to get very snubbed. But if you haven't seen it yet, absolutely go watch it. And also, the producing behind it is very phenomenal and underrated as well. So yeah, go watch Mass.
You just say that
shout out
because
boy
we,
Dylan.
we know the producer.
It's a good movie. It's
Sam,
watch
what is your number 5?
I apologize that Mass is my number 14, Dylan. Sorry.
It's my number 16.
Oh my god, y'all.
That's it.
Sorry, Dylan.
My 5th is come on. I'm just assuming you all have this like way higher than me, but it's still 5, so I don't want to hear any complaints.
I'm sorry.
This is such a beautiful, empathetic movie, and I really like when Joaquin does this type of role. He's so sweet in it, and he's so human in it, And of course, like he's also like incredible when he's intense. But I don't know. I'm really into this side of him as well. He has so much range. And Woody Norman, like I think everything that I can say about this performance has already been said. Just unreal, absolutely amazing. I love it.
It's my 53. I'm sorry.
What? Sorry. Anyway. That's a
So-
spoiler for later on my list. Sorry.
Just bump it up to 60.
What a coincidence.
Sorry. It's
My
still like a
five-
4.
Wait,
but,
what
like,
did you say, Jasmine? I didn't hear.
It's my 53,
Oh,
and it's still 4 stars.
Oh,
goodness. How many movies did you see this year?
190. Oh, I'm at 195. 2021.
Jesus
Goodness.
Christ. Good job.
Yeah.
She's on Jake levels at this point.
Well, Jake has 300 for us.
Yeah, I know
Liter-
some of,
Jake
some of
literally
your
watched,
rankings
like-
of this movie, and I
Jake watched
apologize.
70 2021 movies in like a week. 70.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
oh my god, I can't do that. Yeah, I know some of your rankings of this movie. I'm so sorry. And that person knows who I'm talking. I'm talking about them too.
What a coincidence. My 5 also happens to be the movie we were just talking about. Come on, come on. So about 5 years ago, I went to a theater to see Mike Mills' last film, 20th Century Women, and it instantly became one of my favorite movies of all time. And one of the most important film viewing experiences I've ever had. It is a brilliant film, and it immediately made me realize that Mike Mills is one of the greatest filmmakers working today, and probably the filmmaker that I most subscribe to their ideology. Like him as a person and the things that he values, I also value. So I was very much excited to see his latest film, Come On, Come On, especially knowing that it's a film about parenting and a film about familial bonds. And while Come On, Come On, the messages that it's going for didn't necessarily resonate with me at this time in my life, like 20th Century Women did 5 years ago. It's still a beautiful movie, and it continues to prove why Mike Mills is one of the greatest filmmakers working today, and why I think he's going to go down as really one of the greatest of all time by the end of his career. I think that this is an incredibly authentic film. I love Woody Norman's performance in particular. It's one of the best child performances I've ever seen. I also really like Joaquin Phoenix showing his more sensitive side. That's not something we always get to see, and he's the kind of actor who likes to hide behind his characters, but I like seeing the real him, and I like seeing him being vulnerable, and I was very impressed by what he was doing here. Also, Gabby Hoffman is incredible. It's just one of those movies that every time you see it, it reminds you why life is so beautiful and what's important in life, and why we need these bonds and we need these relationships to live a fulfilling life. And it's just a beautifully written, beautifully directed film. I love the black and white cinematography. I love the score by the National. It's one of those movies I'm going to cherish for a long time, and it's got so much heart. And it's relatively, well, it definitely, I would not call it slight, but it's one of those movies that is light enough that you can watch it over and over again, but also has a lot of depth, and it also makes you think a lot. So I think it's a beautiful movie, and definitely one of the best of 2021.
Have you guys ever felt like you're supposed to be doing something already with your life? Like you're almost nearing 25, you should be married maybe, or you have a car, already know what you're gonna do, and there's just a tick, 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 until you feel like maybe tomorrow will blow up or your anxiety's just flowing. That's what our protagonist in my number 5 film, Tick, Tick, Boom, is dealing with. If you've learned anything about me on this podcast already, and maybe more so down the line, I love musicals. So just getting the band together with Jonathan Larson's story with Lin-Manuel Miranda behind the camera, and you add in this 10 out of 10 performance by Andrew Garfield, and you got your makings of just one of my favorite films of the year. I am just still like so surprised how committed Andrew Garfield to his performance. Like he just went all in terms of just the acting, the singing, just everything works so well. It's one of the greatest honors of having seen this. Yeah, what am I trying to say? It's basically just a really great movie with spectacular emotional musical sequences. And here is to hoping that Andrew Garfield gets that Oscar win, baby. Because I'm sending it out because he deserves it.
He absolutely deserves it. Goodness gracious almighty.
Yeah. If Will Smith wins, we riot. I'm sorry. I'm fine with Benedict Cumberbatch winning, but
Well, hopefully my prediction turns out well. Okay, so my number 5, I'm kind of shocked the movie is this low at this point, but so many other movies have come out and Tristan's about to fucking re-at me. But my number 5 is The Worst Person in the World. I was so, I mean, this movie really knocked me out when I watched it. It is so captivating, so just well written, real, down to earth, earnest, honest, funny, and really just like a kind of a real movie. It really hits you kind of right into feels as you realize, oh shit, this is gonna be me. And it's kind of like almost like you took Francis Ha and you set it in Oslo, Norway. And this is part of, Joachim Trier's Oslo trilogy with Reprise and Oslo August 31st, both of which I still need to watch. And he, brings his own into this film here. The screenplay is phenomenal. And just, every character, even if they're like kind of a bad person, you end up feeling for them really hard. But really, this whole film rides a lot on the lead performance by Renate Reinsve. And I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, because she gives maybe my favorite performance of the entire year. Maybe. I have to watch the movie again. But she is so just down to earth, honest, funny in this movie. She plays this role with so much grace. I remember I said something in my Letterboxd review. I was like, it's like, you take Carey Mulligan and Education and Jill Clayburgh and Not a Married Woman, you put them together, you get this performance. And Sam DMs me and he's like, I need to see this movie right now. But I mean, that might be a little much, but like that's kind of how I felt watching the film. Is like she really is just that good, and that has to be one of the most deserved Cannes Best Actress wins of all time. And I really hope that she gets that fucking BAFTA nomination, especially since she is the only non-English language performance on the long list. I really hope she gets that nomination because she deserves it so much.
For a second, I thought you were going to say Oscar nomination. I'm like, you're being very hopeful.
Well,
I think she'll get BAFTA. I do. At this rate, I think so.
I'm not delusional enough to think she'll get the Oscar nomination, Jasmine. Okay.
I actually, it's funny. I think you say that because Jill Clayburgh also won the Cannes Film Festival Award for Best Actress.
She tied.
Okay, but she still won.
Yeah, a win is a win. Okay, but either way, this movie is so good. And
I do think we need to shout out Anders Danielsen Lee.
Yes.
You do not leave him out. He gives an amazing supporting performance in the third act of the movie.
Yes, he really does. He's my second favorite supporting actor performance of the year. We'll get to my favorite later.
Because he gives probably one of the best performances of the year. Like he's so good.
He's up there for sure. And Yeah, worst person in the world. Phenomenal movie. Phenomenal movie. Loved it.
All right. My number 4 is a movie that I think it's been in my top 10 since I saw it back at Tribeca, and I've been waiting for people to see it. So my number 4 is The Novice with Isabel Fuhrman, which is a phenomenal movie. If you're an independent spirits member, if you're a film independent member, please watch this movie. It is so good. It is basically like if you put Black Swan and Whiplash together and they had a baby, that would be this movie.
Oh, goodness gracious.
It's so good in I think not being its own original movie while still kind of bringing off these ideas that are clearly inspired by like movies that like Black Swan and Whiplash. The director has done sound work on Zack Snyder's movies. And it's super obvious in the way, like it's some of the best sound design of the year. I was kind of sad when it wasn't shortlisted, even though I know like no one's probably seen this movie because it's like IFC, I think, like distributing it or something like that. And Isabel Fuhrman is probably like my third favorite like lead actress performance. She is this like really just incredible performance, and I beg of you all please to vote for her for the Independent Spirit Awards.
I plan on
That's
it.
my FYC. That's my FYC for her.
I
One of
plan
the
on
best
I plan on
performances of
doing
the
just
year.
that. Don't worry about
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I can do a convincing campaign. Yeah, amazing movie. Absolutely phenomenal. Highly recommend.
Okay, my number 4 is Last Night in Soho. Like Brett said, it's like a homage to Giallo, but it's also a homage to like 60s Hammer horror and De Palma. And it's like Edgar Wright has always been like his works has always been like homages to previous cinematic canon, and like this is no different. But like what sets this apart from like from his other works, for me at least, like it's like I'm more into Giallo than any of the other genres he's been homaging in the past. And it's cool to see like the kinds of like it's good to see like a very old-fashioned like horror done in a more modern way on the big screen. It's so cool. And it's like what can I say, it's like one of the best moments in that entire movie is like the nightclub scene where she hallucinates all these like apparitions, and it's like a really overwhelming, it's a sensory overwhelm. It reminds me a lot of like Roman Polanski's Repulsion, and I think I can see how it's also a homage to that movie too, because like it has like similar like plot elements to it too. So like that's why it's my number 4.
All right. So my number 4 of the year is a movie I've talked about a couple times and continue to. And that is The Green Knight, which I know some people are probably like, that's only your number 4. I'm telling you guys, this year for me, some movies came out, man. But The Green Knight was one of the most hypnotic movie going experiences I've ever had. I remember going to the theater hyped out of my mind to see it, and literally like walking out, and like my entire body was just like shaking, and I was just like, wow, that was something I've never seen before. And of course people are split on it because people can't accept new things, but I think what David Lowery has made here is something that I would put on levels of like The Shining or the original Blade Runner, as in it is a pure euphoric experience. For it is sensory, it is mind bending. It has, I think this movie was made for around $20 million, if I'm not mistaken. And it is the best looking movie of the year. The production design, the cinematography, all of that is breathtaking. The visual effects, I still have no idea how they did it or made it. I was just like in awe. how on earth do you set up these shots and make them look that good? But also, it's a beautiful deconstruction of the hero's arc. I think this is a great film to kind of really deconstruct what is the superhero genre and what is Harry Potter, this idea that you are the chosen one and you must fulfill a destiny. And what this film shows is that you're just a cog in the machine. You know, you're not this entirely special person that's just chosen, but it's more so that you have to figure out where you're at, not that it finds you. And I think that's a really interesting subversion of expectations. And David Lowery, I just like I share his same sensibility on film. You know, I'm a really big advocate for Pete's Dragon, and I think A Ghost Story is immaculate. And I think this might be his best movie to date, and that's saying a whole lot because like I'm a huge fan of his. And again, I saw it like I think twice or three times in theaters when I was out, and I have the 4K now. You know, like I even have the RPG set from A24.com. Like I am a big nerd for this movie. I think it's so cool. And it was like way up there for me. But like, I don't know, there's three other movies that really went for the heart this year that I got to talk about later. But like this one just, this one blew my mind. Like, just legitimately was an amazing experience.
So my number 4, kind of an underrated movie, I want to say. That's right. It's Spider-Man No Way Home. So I mean, Loki, I'm kind of serious about that though. So like it does have a lot of hype behind it, and that's I mean, that's because of all the multiverse stuff. But like there is a lot of underlooked things in it, which is the technical filmmaking aspects behind it. I paid more attention to like the whole directing style on rewatch, and it really does feel like the most John Watts film out of the entire Homecoming trilogy. On top of that, Willem Dafoe gives one of like my favorite supporting performances in such a long time. And he really does give 169% to the role. And like I cried so many times during this movie, and in the really stupid scenes as well. Just love everything about it and what it also sets up for the future.
My fourth, this is when it gets tricky. But my fourth is The Power of the Dog. This is a film that I think you watch twice, unless you're a genius or I'm just an idiot. But I didn't really get it the first time. I still liked it. I just thought I was missing something. And then I rewatched it. Everything just completely clicked, and it just grows more I think about it, it just grows and grows. It has such an amazing ending. I love what Jane Campion does with regards to the Cody Smith McPhee character and how she sort of places an illusion on the audience about societal expectations and what homosexuality means in a foreign way, especially considering it was in the 20s in Montana. And I think that I think that the character of Phil Burbank is so interesting because you view him as this very diabolical, ruthless, not nice, nasty person. And towards the end, in that one moment, when you see the end happen and you realize how it all plays out, you feel some sympathy for him, which I thought was really intriguing. Plus, I think the sound design is something that should get mentioned more. The way it places an emphasis on sounds like wind hitting tall grass and an animal being killed and footsteps is really interesting and builds so much tension. And obviously, the music by Johnny Greenwood helps with this a lot. And as Jasmine said, I think it's fucking awesome if two women are able to win Best Director back to back. This is insane. I really hope she pulls through. I think she will, and she absolutely deserves it. It is a magnificent film. I have zero problems with it winning Best Picture. In fact, I think it'll be among the best Picture winners. Maybe not top 10, but definitely top 20, 25, having seen them all. So I'm looking forward to see if this film does as well as it seems to be during the rest of award season.
All right, so Here's where it gets tricky, as Sam said. I have 4. I know what my number 1 is, but 2 to 4 keep flopping back and forth for me. But I decided, and maybe this is because I've only seen this movie once, but I decided to put Licorice Pizza at number 4. This is the brand new film from Paul Thomas Anderson, one of the most celebrated filmmakers working today. And he's a filmmaker who I've always appreciated, and I've liked every single one of his movies. I think they're all great, other than Magnolia. I hate that movie. But every other one that I've seen, I think is excellent.
Excuse me, Tristan. Excuse me.
I'm sorry. But yeah, he's an incredible filmmaker, but I haven't really truly connected to any of his films other than Phantom Thread's one that really went for my head, but Licorice Pizza went for my heart, and it really captured me. I think this is a beautiful tale about 2 people finding their way at 2 different stages in their lives, but still able to connect. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding this movie and the age gap specifically, but I think it's done very delicately. I think Paul Thomas Anderson makes sure that this isn't a problematic relationship or one that's going to negatively affect either individual in the relationship. It's more platonic with kind of edging into puppy love. But what I love so much about this movie is I think that Alana Haim, her character in particular, is just really relatable as someone who is almost at her age. I really like watching her struggle to try and figure out who she is, and being at that point in her life where she knows she wants to grow up, but she also wants to hang on to childhood. And Cooper Hoffman's character gives her that ability to hang on to childhood and hang on to her innocence. I think Cooper Hoffman, I know everyone's talking about Alana Haim because she's phenomenal in the movie. She was, part of Haim, this rock band, for a long time, and no one knew that she can act, and she's an absolute star. But Cooper Hoffman is just incredible, and I hate that he's getting overshadowed because he's just really charming, and he's a star as well. He's someone that I think we're going to see a lot of in the future. They have great chemistry together. I love how Paul Thomas Anderson captures LA in the 1970s, and I love the meandering nature of the film, how a lot of this film just revolves around the 2 of them going on misadventures, whether it's traveling to New York to go to his acting auditions or creating a waterbed business. It's these kind of like random sporadic storylines that all weave together brilliantly, and I don't think any other filmmaker would have been able to pull this off. I love how you're watching these characters and day goes to night and there's this impending danger, yet when it turns back to day, it's very light again. It's just a beautiful little movie, and a movie that really takes you back to that time. Obviously, I didn't grow up in the 1970s, but this gave me a sense of what it must have felt like to be young at that time. And I think he really knocked it out of the park with this one.
So my number 4 is one I know definitely this group and just in general not a lot of people have seen, but that is Apple's Swan Song. It's this great meditation on grief and love and death and just life in general. It stars Mahershala Ali, and it's set in kind of this not too distant future. And I think that's one of the great aspects I just absolutely loved about the movie. It could have easily been a Black Mirror episode, but it shows such a more warm, optimistic technological future with like self-driving cars. And it was like, there's so many little details of this future of what our future could look like. It almost was very Disney-ish in terms of like Tomorrowland and Walt Disney's vision. So I think that helped a lot. but there's also Mahershala Ali giving his first real leading performance as well. Let me back up. The whole point of the movie is that he is dying, for those who don't know, and he has an option to clone himself so that his wife and children get to like live with him and go on. So the film ponders that question of like, should he do it, about cloning and the difficult choices we have to make in life. As I mentioned before, not a lot of people have seen it. I think it's great. That's why I put it at my number 4, because that's kind of the spot that it deserves. And yeah, so check that out when you guys had the chance.
So my number 4 of the year, again, to reiterate, this shit is where it gets really tough. It gets really tough. This one was my most anticipated film of the year. It's a movie that did not disappoint. That is Dune by Denis Villeneuve. Like Brett, I am very familiar with the source material. I read it when I was probably too young to understand what was going on. And since then, I have, really learned like what its actual and become invested, what its actual themes are, how it's a direct allegory for, US imperialism in the Middle East and certain things like that. And I love the world building of everything as well. And this film really is beautiful, like recreation of what, like, it's basically everything I pictured in the book in terms of sets, costumes, the whole visual aspects. I was like, this is Dune right here. Like, this is what it should be. This is what it's always been. Again, I am a David Lynch stan. He's like maybe my favorite director, but his version of Dune really does not work. It's not his fault, but his version of Dune is just not a good movie. And this one really it righted all of the wrongs that his version of Dune had, with the storytelling and everything. And I mean, I'm with Brett. I think this is easily Timothée Chalamet's best performance, and he was honestly perfectly cast. Like, I think the casting is like spot on, and I love the Rebecca Ferguson and Oscar Isaac as well. Stellan Skarsgård is, I think that's who he is, who plays the Baron. He's great, and I really love the score by Hans Zimmer. The sound design is some of the best I've probably ever heard. And I think this movie really, I mean, Denis Villeneuve is like the next Ridley Scott. Just hope he doesn't make a House of Gucci, but he's the next big thing, and I am very excited to see everything else that he does from now until the end of time. And Dune is just, beautiful sci-fi, epic, cinematic, experience. Like, this is my Spider-Man No Way Home. Right here. This is my Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah. Anyway, this is my number 4. That's Dune. All right. Jasmine, number 3.
All right. Because I'm probably gonna go to bed soon, I'm just gonna finish off my list because
Okay.
I unfortunately have to adult and work in the morning. So my number 3, because I screwed up, in place of Dune in my lower 5s, actually Visuals versus the Machines. And my number 3 is also Dune. Can't do math, it's fine. I'm an arts major. Only failed it twice, it's fine. But my number 3 is also Dune. A lot has been said about this movie. Gotta love Zendaya as well. Relatable movie. I also would search after Zendaya if she appeared in my dreams. So can relate to Timothy on that, but a lot has already been said about this movie, but I'm mostly just excited about Hans Zimmer finally possibly winning another Oscar. It's
Mhm.
been 20 something years since he won for The Lion King, and it's been way too long. It is so criminal that that man only has one Oscar. But I love Denis Villeneuve's work, or Villeneuve, as Steve Dog likes to say.
And let's Cameron Jackson.
But I love like the world building, and like Denis Villeneuve is probably one of my favorite directors. But that is my 3. My 2 is a movie that I can't remember who mentioned it earlier. I'm sorry, but my number 2 is Coda, which I get why people are, I guess, mid, as the kids say, on this movie, because it is just a very like straightforward Hallmark film. But there's something about these coming of age movies that just get me. And I saw this movie at Sundance last year, and I've seen it 2 more times since. And each time it still just like tugs at my heartstrings. Troy Kotsur gives like one of the best performances of the year. He probably has one of my favorite scenes of the entire year. I'm really excited to see what Emilia Jones does next. I think her performance definitely isn't being as talked about, but she gives just this really like just great performance. And then my number 1 of the year was Spencer, which this poor movie.
Yeah,
Poor movie.
I feel bad.
This poor movie. This is one of my most anticipated movies of the year after Last Night in Soho, which I sadly did not really like. Sorry. Did not really like Last Night in Soho.
Based.
Great text.
Looking
Don't like
to
this.
suck a pickle, like the guy says in West Side Story.
Great text. Don't love the screenplay, particularly the third act. I think could use a little bit of work. But Spencer, this poor movie, poor Kristen Stewart. She's so close. She's so close. I absolutely love this movie. I watched Jackie to prepare for this movie, and I also loved it. I gave it like a 9.5, and I love that he did the biopic, but he didn't do it in a conventional way, because we've had like 6 biopics this year, and they're all the same, just with different names and faces. But I think biopics work when they're in a very short period of time rather than trying to cover their entire life, because that gets very overwhelming. Kristen Stewart gives one of, if not the best performance of her entire career. She's amazing. Everyone who hates her at SAG can go shut up. Please. She is so good. I am so sad that this movie has been just completely shafted and could possibly just walk away with like no nominations. It's made me so sad. But yeah, that is my top 10 of the year. This poor movie.
All right. That great list, honestly. Great list right there. All right.
Also,
Thank
it's a
you
rough
very
day.
much.
It's a rough day for Kristen Stewart fans this week. Rough day.
Yeah.
It's been rough.
Yeah,
It's been real rough.
just, man, yeah. I now you know how it feels to have somebody in Best Actress who you stand so much get shanked by the industry. You know how it feels now. Anyway, moving off of that, Lester, you're number 3 of the year.
Okay, my number 3 of the year is Come On, Come On. This was my first Mike Mills movie. I did not expect. I also did not expect to like it this much. I gave it 5 stars in Letterboxd.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
It's kind of like Ted Lasso in a way. Like it's like cinematic therapy, if that makes sense. It's got such a great performance from Woody Norman, and Joaquin Phoenix also gives like one of his best performance ever. I think he should have gotten his Oscar for this instead of Joker. It's like one of the main lessons that I took away from this movie is it's a message I wish I have I would have like learned or taught when I was like a kid, but unfortunately I had to learn it as an adult. But it's like it's almost the same lesson as in Inside Out, which is kind of like how do I say this? It's like without giving too much away, like the lesson here is like it's okay to steal in the negative feelings. It's not going to ruin your life. It's okay to not be okay sometimes. So yeah, that's why I love it.
It's Kachow time, but not the Kachow you're thinking of. My number 3 is Drive My Car. So this was an interesting development of how I watched this. I got a screener for this movie, and started watching it, and I think like the first 40 minutes I was like, this is interesting, but I really have no idea where this is going. Um or like what is this? And about 40 minutes into the movie the title credits come up and I'm like, what? Okay. Huh. And I realize it's because the first 40 minutes of this movie is the set dressing, and it literally starts 40 minutes in. Like the movie starts 40 minutes in. And I'm like, I have never experienced something like this before. This is disarming, but this is super interesting. And then it became the most riveting thing I'd ever seen. Like I cannot explain it. Like just all of a sudden I was like grabbing onto every single word these characters were saying and really feeling the meditative process of this film. And kind of like George, it's not a movie I have been able to stop thinking about or discussing with people since I saw it. Like so many people have been like, you have to see Drive My Car. It's 3 hours long. It's a lot like Synecdoche, New York, but kind of better. Because this guy who is like figuring out his process of grief by staging a show kind of about his grief, and in this way is figuring out that we need to live anyways. It's this idea that we can't let the bad things that happen to us define our lives, or else there's no way we could ever live or experience new things. And the relationship he develops with this woman that drives him around is very sweet, and you understand, like, you see that she has her own heart and thing, and that's why she's doing this. She has more layers to her. And then there's an actor that he ends up talking to who gets into his own stuff, and he has all these layers. And then it's just a very cathartic movie. It lays all of its emotions very bluntly, but like understated at the same time. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's just like a very unique experience. Like there's so much of the movie is just dialogue, just characters talking about life and explaining it to you in a very digestible way, but at the same time there's so much understated emotion behind every single word. And I don't know, the last 20 to 30 minutes are some of the most emotionally impactful film I've ever seen. It's a weird, like, it's sad and it's melancholy, but it's also this warm hug of embrace, and you know what, things are kind of rough and we endure that. And the world might not make much sense, and tragedy that happens might not make sense, but like there's a piece of knowing that in the end of the day things will just happen and we have no control over that. And I think it is a movie about losing control over our situation and not necessarily being okay with that, but just accepting that it'll happen. And it was stunning. And I've never seen a movie quite paced this way, quite constructed this way. I think from a pure filmmaking perspective, it's probably the single best movie of the year. And like, again, if it doesn't get nominated for Best Picture, I will be very, very upset because I just think it's obviously one of the most well constructed movies of the year, just like bar none. And yeah,
All right, Sam.
Actually, just like I say, I'm
Wait,
gonna head off. I'm gonna
Andre.
head off to bed.
Andre.
Oh,
I was gonna
okay,
head off to
sorry.
bed.
All
So
right. Bye.
Good night,
everyone.
Jasmine.
Bye,
yeah,
Jazz.
Jasmine.
All right, Andre, you go. I'm sorry. I keep getting you and Sam mixed up for some reason.
Yeah, actually, another underrated movie. Also, another superhero movie for my number 3 is The Suicide Squad. And it actually is quite underrated, I would argue, and one of the greatest superhero films of all time, but also kind of transcends the superhero genre for me. I did go into the film a little concerned it'd be just some raunchy superhero movie, and it did have some edgy elements to it, but overall it was an incredibly beautiful and heartfelt film. It's almost like James Gunn made $100 million indie film. There's so much depth to it. The characters, I love each and every one of them, and that is what James Gunn is really good at. It also does what the 2016 Suicide Squad fails to do, because it does have a very similar plot and themes, but it elevates those to a whole nother level. I love how like the main Suicide Squad goes from very broken people coming together truly as a family. I also like how they didn't have to use the words family like the 2016 one did. So that was kind of nice as well.
Well, Vin Diesel wasn't in the first one, so I don't know why they use family. So,
I know that was really off-putting. But all right, getting back from a 5-year-old film, but I like how I just love how the initial suicide mission they were tasked on by Amanda Waller was just to fight some starfish, but the actual suicide mission that ends up happening is going against Waller's orders, which is actual suicide pretty much, to just save the day and help out the people, and just becoming actual heroes. And that made me cry really hard. It was straight up therapy. And yeah, Ratcatcher 2, please call me.
all right, now Sam gets to go.
I had a very difficult time deciding between my 3 and my 2. But my third favorite film of the year is The Worst Person in the World. This was my most anticipated film of the year from the moment that George told me about it, because Joe Clayburgh in An Unmarried Woman is like low-key the best performance ever. And I think that it definitely met what I thought it was going to do. It's a very the way that it looks at sex and the way you feel about sex. I've never seen this. It's so chill about it, and it's so intimate in a very raw way that you don't really see explored in film. Sex is always portrayed as such a big deal, but when it's the topic of Julie and how she feels about it, the movie does something so transcendent with it, and I love that. I think it's really realistic and really believable and very. It really ensures that it is not trying to abide by cinematic tropes or screenplay tropes. Obviously, Renat is fucking amazing, but Anders Danielson Lee is just as good. He broke my heart. He was heartbreaking. He was so beautiful in it. And that scene where the world stops, I won't spoil anything, is magic.
All right. So, do you guys remember Pixar's Soul that came out last year? Well, it was my most anticipated movie of the year, and I loved it. It was phenomenal. It was, at the time before Luca came out, it was my favorite Pixar movie since Inside Out. But there was something missing for me. There was that extra layer that it didn't have, that it was so close to achieving perfection for me, and it was so close to making me cry, but it was just missing one thing, and 9 Days for me filled that void. 9 Days is this little indie that came out. Technically, it came out at Sundance in 2020, but it was released in theaters this year, so I'm counting it as 2021. It's a beautiful little directorial debut by Edison Oda, about a man who is essentially kind of like this guide, not of the afterlife, but the before life, where he takes these souls in and he stages a competition, and the one that makes it to the end of the 9 days gets to be born and gets to live on Earth. But the thing with him is that he is actually a spirit who had his time on Earth, and he did not have a good experience. He was someone that was filled with positivity until life hit him and kind of took everything that he was passionate about, and he's bitter, and that's reflected in the people that he chooses to basically be born and have a life on Earth. And this one spirit, played by Zazie Beetz, kind of teaches him to appreciate and love life again. And it's this beautiful little movie that it's so full of life, and it is so creative. And I can't believe it's a directorial debut, because really it's just perfectly made. Like, there were so many scenes that I was just, my jaw dropped. There's one scene in particular, basically these characters, Winston Duke, who he plays the main character. He's absolutely phenomenal in the movie. It's his best performance. And his assistant, played by Benedict Wong, who is incredible as well. It's a much more subdued performance than I typically see from him. And they basically, for the souls that aren't able to be born, they stage these, like, basically a memory that they wish they were able to experience on Earth. And there's one where this woman wants to ride a bike, and it's just a beautiful scene capturing the small little moments in life and what makes life so special. It's a true humanist film. It's a movie that's going to make you cry. It's got this incredible big monologue from Winston Duke at the end that is just so cathartic. It's got an incredible ensemble of some pretty well-known actors who come in for a short amount of time and just give a really great performance. But again, it's really Edison Oda and Winston Duke who make this film special. And it's a movie that really went all throughout my list. I didn't know where to place it, but I had to place in my top 3 because I saw it in January and I've been thinking about it every day since. It's an incredible little gem, and please, if you haven't seen it, check it out.
My number 3 of the year is Luca. I really loved this Pixar tale of friendship, and particularly just I know someone here mentioned before, but like the almost Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli kind of feelings of this town of of this little Italian town, that these 2 boys grow up having this great summer adventure that all leads to this high stakes Vespa road chase race thing. It's so cute and just so simple. It's not preoccupied with creating a supervillain for merchandising at Disney parks. It's really just this sweet little tale made by gorgeous Disney animation about just who you are and how sometimes even your greatest differences can be an asset, and how if you have just friends to help you along the way, everything's gonna be fine and everything's gonna be okay. And it just was just a movie that stuck with me throughout the year. I was lucky enough to see this in a theater because Disney put this on Disney Plus, because it's kind of been being that rude way towards Pixar movies, but that's a conversation for another day. But and I think that experience just helped me love the movie more, just being totally surrounded in this mystical underwater world versus this Italian sea town. It just stayed on my top 10 all summer, and I just love it so much.
My number 3 of the year is a film that Tristan, for a brief time, had below Dear Evan Hansen on his 2021 ranked list. And I'm still salty about that. That movie is Spencer. Like Jasmine said, this movie has been beat the fuck up. recently with, not doing well in the BAFTA long lists, getting snubbed in costumes. I had the Critics' Choice. No cinematography mentions anywhere. Kristen Stewart getting snubbed at SAG. It's sad, honestly. It's really sad how far this movie has fallen, because I think people just weren't ready to see this take on the royal family. Obviously, there's Kristen Stewart's performance, which is phenomenal, and another one of the best performances of the year. She's stunning in the role. One of the things that really shines out was like Pablo Larraín's direction of the movie, and like the cinematography in particular. This is like actually like my personal cinematography win for the year. I mean, it was shot on film, which I love, but also just the way it was shot, like the camera movements and the angles that were chosen. I mean, it all looks gorgeous, all looks stunningly beautiful and introspective, in a way that Jackie, kind of wasn't. You really get inside Diana's head. And the film is gorgeous for that reason. The costume design in this movie is also, spectacular. People talk about Cruella being the best costume design of the year. No, for my money, it's Spencer. Spencer should win the Oscar for costumes easily. Just beautiful costumes, and they also serve a huge purpose in the film. Another thing this should be winning the Oscar for easily is Johnny Greenwood's score. I mean, oh my fucking god, that score is so brilliant. I don't know how Johnny Greenwood does it. I don't know how he does it, but he fucking does it. And yeah, he's so good. But I just don't think people were, wanted to see this level of like bashing the royal family, like if The Crown wasn't enough, and then like the Crown's where they draw the line, I guess. And then here you have this really scathing portrayal, and a lot of people will judge, like we'll talk badly about the screenplay. I think for the screenplay is not by any means the best of the year, but I think it's very like a lot of like what works about the movie in terms of the characters is found in the script. And it may be the same writer as Serenity with Matthew McConaughey, but still, I mean, even M. Night Shyamalan has some good movies in his filmography, so there you go. And yeah, Spencer, I hope I hope and pray this movie gets some kind of a rebound, but there's no way it's going to, unfortunately.
Shame that the Iron Lady did better than Spencer.
That is
Like,
a war.
it's sad because that movie's actually sort of endorsing Margaret Thatcher.
That whole movie is a war crime.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 2 of the year is The French Dispatch. It combines 3 of my favorite things: Wes Anderson, French cinema, and journalism. Like, Wes Anderson movies have always this like handcrafted like feel to it, and The French Dispatch is no different. And I really, really love catching all the like little homages and references to French cinema. There's like homages to Jacques Tati's Mon Oncle and Jean-Luc Godard's Masculin Féminin. One of the songs that plays in Masculin Féminin even made an appearance in the movie too. And I don't remember a whole lot of other references, but I'm sure there's more. You could tell like this was like a Wes Anderson version of a French New Wave movie. And if Wes Anderson wasn't already one of my favorite filmmakers, he's certainly like in like the top spot, like top 2 right now. And I'm very excited to watch like his next movie Asteroid City, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're on to my number 2, my second favorite movie of the year. And I'll just say this right now. I have particular reasons for making my number 1 my number 1. We'll get into it. I'm a stan. But my number 2 is probably the movie that has emotionally impacted me the most this year. And most everyone has talked about it at this point, but I'll still bring it up. It is Come On, Come On. So I saw Come On, Come On at the Nashville Film Festival in the Belcourt Theater. It was a surprise screening, and so I did not know I was going to see this movie. And so I saw it back in October, and I'll say that like the time I watched it, a lot was changing out my life at once, and I was incredibly stressed and incredibly frizzled. And my trip to Nashville was great, cathartic, really introspective and interesting. It was a whirlwind. You know, it's something I'll never forget. But you know, going into the Belcourt Theater and then hearing that they were playing Come On, Come On, you know, I got excited because I was like, I've been looking forward to this movie. I've seen the trailers. I think this is going to be something really special. And it's almost like the movie was talking directly to me in a certain way. And I kind of see that over the time. Because kind of like what Lester said, it's a very therapeutic movie, but it's also a movie about, you know, a lot of movies, especially ones geared towards kids, kind of go for the you always seem to be happy and positive about life and the outcomes. And I'm not saying that positivity isn't a good thing, but what was nice about Come On, Come On is that it kind of showed that, like, if you're stressed right now and things aren't going exactly the way you planned, it's okay to be upset about that. It's okay to have other emotions other than apathy and acceptance, you know? And I think it's great because it's a coming of age movie, but it's not about the kid, it's about the uncle. The kid's philosophy of life never changes, but the uncle's significantly does towards the end of the film. Because the uncle has learned to repress his emotions like we all do when we grow up. We don't just yell and cry when we don't get what we want when we grow up, you know? But he's repressed them so much that it's this kid that's just probing him, asking him different weird questions about his life that no one else would ever dare to, from the finally realized how much of himself he had been reserving. And I think Sam said this, but it definitely feels like a cinematic workshopping humanity episode. So of course I would love it, but like it's just genuinely a really important and special movie to me. And it's like, I mean, genuinely one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, we're like in the thick of it now, to quote the Backyardigans. So yeah, it's my number 2.
Also have to add on, I know it's rated R, but I think it's the best family film of the year.
Yeah, kinda,
if you
yeah.
have-
Oh yeah.
If you have a 9-year-old kid or an 8-year-old kid, take them to see it.
So another another very underrated movie is my number 2. I'm putting Last Night in Soho. So this was my most anticipated film of not only this year, but I would say pretty much ever. So Edgar Wright is one of my favorite directors, and this movie was so hyped up for me that I am really surprised that I was not disappointed by it, to be honest. I found the main character Eloise so relatable. She truly is not like the other girls, and that's not even a joke. But I did, the movie felt so classic, like someone said earlier. It's very heavily inspired by like the Galileo genre, but it takes that and Soho modernizes it in such a nuanced way. I would say the performances are all really good. All in all, I would say uh I and like the makeup, cinematography, all really good, especially in the Halloween party scene. I would say it is quite lighthearted on a surface level, but like as the movie goes on, it truly becomes pretty dark. And that is kind of like Soho itself and what the film's trying to say. So I think that was pretty cool as well. So I did actually watch the movie 5 times in theaters. And yeah, really engrossed each time. Like Edgar Wright's other movies, there's just so much rewatchability to it, and yeah, I'm really happy Soho has that as well. But it truly has stuck with me for the past few months, and a massively underrated masterpiece, which I think many might and or hopefully will look upon with like rose-colored glasses. You like
Sam,
that,
The film
George?
itself is a warning to not look at everything in rose-colored glasses.
I know, I know. Okay, fine.
Okay,
But
sorry.
like that is very true. But like I'm looking back at this movie with rose-colored glasses. Ironically.
Okay.
Unironically.
My second favorite film of the year is Parallel Mothers, a movie that no one has discussed yet. I am Motivar, along with Mike Lee, is my favorite director. So this is unsurprising. I think no other director understands, at least that I've seen a major body of work from, understands how to make sure that melodrama feels realistic. It is so emotionally gripping. It is so fun and playful. Obviously, the color palette and the sets and certain objects and tools and artwork, like little details like that, are ridiculous and awesome. Penelope Cruz gives my favorite performance of the year. She's so good. When she's just staring at a computer screen reading results, it's so emotional. I think she gives such this. Sure, you can argue that she's done stuff like this before, but it works so well that I don't have any issue with it. I think she is so captivating, so entertaining to watch. Also, not to forget Milena Smith, who is her co-star, who is not getting any form of praise, and I think she's also excellent. Something also that Almodovar does really well, and I guess this is sort of European, is really understate homosexuality and same-sex romance and bisexuality in such a chill, laid-back way. A lot of American movies that deal with LGBTQ characters fail to not place a huge emphasis on it and make that the entire point of the character of the plot. And Almodovar always succeeds in that department. So watch Parallel Mothers if you haven't. Also, the score is my favorite of the year. It is incredible. I don't know why no one is talking about it. It's so fun, so catchy, gets stuck in your head all the time. I love it. I absolutely adore this film.
So, my second favorite movie of the year, and this is kind of weird saying it's my second favorite movie of the year, considering it's not really the most rewatchable film. It's actually pretty devastating, and that's Mass. I saw Mass at the Sundance Film Festival back in January, which was one of the highlights of my year. It was an incredible experience. I loved attending it. And there was no other film that truly captured my heart at that festival than Mass. This was the movie that I couldn't stop talking about. I went onto the networking platform and I was talking to everyone about it, recommending it to everyone just because I think it's such an important film, but I think it's also an expertly crafted film with 4 of the best performances I've ever seen in my entire life. Fran Kranz, the director, comes from stage, and you can definitely tell because of the way that he blocks the actors and the way that he lets the camera just lay on an actor's face. It's very much a stagey kind of movie, but I think it also lends itself to the cinematic medium because of the way that he shoots it and how he basically rotates the camera around the table. And basically, the majority of this movie is 4 actors sitting around a table, 2 sets of parents. One set, basically their kid shot the other kid and killed him in a school shooting. And I think this is a really important film to watch because guns for some reason are legal in the States and in a lot of parts of the world. And I think there has been a raising concern about this, and a lot of people trying to speak up and say we need to stop this. And Mass perfectly demonstrates why they shouldn't be legal. And I think it's a crucial movie to show in schools. It's devastating. It's captivating. I think that Ann Dowd, Jason Isaacs, and Martha Plimpton in particular are just absolutely entrancing. I think it's really hard to take this material and do justice to it, because this is so many parents' stories. That there are many parents who have had to deal with this, but I think they just make it feel so real and authentic, and they don't candy coat anything. They just lay it out raw to you, and it just broke my heart. I think it's a beautiful movie. It's not one that I'm going to want to watch many times, but to be honest, there really is only one other movie that moved me and surprised me in the way that Mass did. So I had to put it at my number 2. I think it's easily one of the best movies of the year, and one of the best movies in years.
Who knew that in 2021, another great cinematic therapy experience would come from a black and white movie involving an uncle and his nephew going on road trips around the United States. That is Come On, Come On. It was also really special for me because I did manage to go see this with my uncle, and so that was pretty special. Other than that, it's just such a great story about just modern day relationships in terms of parenting between the parent and the child. And it was also pretty fascinating, just the discussions I had with my uncle in terms of like parenting today. In his point of view, he thought, Woody Norman's character was pretty spoiled and whatnot. And just kind of just hearing both sides of the argument was, I think, a very unique experience I had. And just overall, just a great story. I didn't expect it to get to New Orleans, Los Angeles, and just showcasing these cities with so much beauty. I just love, that aspect of this movie of treating kids as human beings, and not just kids who are addicted to their phones or just want to see fart jokes in animated movies like the Emoji Movie, like actual human beings with thoughts and emotions and huge, humongous feelings. There's a really great movie. Another hit out of the park for A24. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a coincidence because my number 2 movie of the year is also Come On, Come On.
If you are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, this does not apply to you. However, if you are watching this episode on YouTube, we regret to inform you that we used all the possible clips of Come On because George is unable to convert his MKV of the movie to an MP4 and there are no more viable clips on the internet. Once again, laugh at him.
I'm not somebody who cries very much during movies, but typically every year there is one movie that just gets me crying like a little baby, Minari, Marriage Story, Beale Street, Lady Bird. It happens every year, and this year it happened to be Come On, Come On. And I mean, Mike Mills is kind of a legend at this point. The man really just, his movies have so much humanity and heart, earnesty, honesty. I mean, just beautiful, beautiful work on his part. And what I love about was with this movie is it's kind of like, seeing the world's eyes through the perspective of a child or an uncle trying to see the world through, a child's eyes. But also, like Brett says, one of the things the movie says is, it's okay to be upset when things go wrong in your life. You don't have to conceal your emotions about that. You can let them free, and it can be cathartic. And I mean, this is just one of the most cathartic movies of the year. I really love that they did that, and I think the black and white complements those themes of the movie really, really well. Joaquin Phoenix is fantastic. It's top 3, maybe top 4 favorite performances of his. Woody Norman gives like the best supporting performance of the year. It is. I wish that Woody Norman was getting the critics wins that Cody Smith was getting right now, because this kid is just so phenomenal, and the fact that he's fucking British, just, man, that makes it even more impressive. Gabby Hoffman, people need to be talking more about Gabby Hoffman. She is so phenomenal in this film, and I mean, she easily deserves a Best Supporting Actress nomination. I don't know why people aren't recognizing her more in that category, seriously. And I also love the score by Bryson Aaron Desner, or The National. Just kind of like heartwarming. It's a very heartwarming synth score, and it really suits the tone of the movie really well. And yeah, I really love this movie. I don't know if it's as good as 20th Century Women, but it is one of my favorite movies of the year. And I'm saddened that this movie is not getting any love from awards bodies. It pisses me off.
Okay, my number one is probably shocking. I did not expect that to be my number one until even at the end of the year. And it's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Going into the year, I did not expect to have any MCU movies in my top 10, but now I have 2, which is wild considering the like Shang-Chi is like, I did not expect it. I did not expect to like it that much either. Like, because I was kind of done with the MCU after Endgame, because like, where could they even go from there? So like, but like Shang-Chi was like a different thing. It was the first Chinese superhero on screen, I think. Maybe, I think so, yeah. And it's so cool seeing someone that looks like me on the big screen, and like 90% of the cast is also Chinese, like actual Chinese too. There's no like Koreans or like Japanese thrown in there, like crazy rich Asians. It's like, and like for like the first 10 to 15 minutes, all the dialogue was in like Mandarin, and it was like such a surreal experience to see like a big mainstream blockbuster, MCU blockbuster, to have like another language for its first 10 minutes. And I was like soaking in the experience, like this is actually happening. Like I'm in a theater full of like mostly white people, and like it's like we're witnessing like history made for the first time. And like, it's like I can't really say much about like its cultural accuracy, because like I'm not really an expert in Chinese culture, but I'm going off based on my experiences growing up. I would say it's mostly accurate. There's like some details that were like, yeah, that's like what I grew up with, like going to like a temple and praying to your ancestors with incense, or like it's the day of like mourning. I wouldn't say mourning, it's like, yeah, kind of like a day of mourning called Qingmingjie. And they actually say that word in the movie, which took me by surprise too. It's like kind of like Mexico's Day of the Dead in a way, but not really. And like, I just really love this movie. It kind of suffers from the usual Marvel third act problem with like huge CGI battles, and like it kind of feels like the director kind of like it kind of feels more like a corporate product than an actual director behind the scenes. But I kind of don't really care because the movie had built so much goodwill for me throughout the entire 2 hours. So like, yeah, it's my number one because it's very personal to me.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I know we joke about the meme, like, this is my Black Panther, but this is literally your Black Panther.
Yeah, I
So-
hesitate to say that, but like, yeah.
Well, this is my Black Panther. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. So this movie is absolute. If you know the type of movies that I like, you know this is absolute like Brett core nonsense that my number one is, and that is Paul Thomas Anderson's latest Licorice Pizza. So how do I start with this? Okay, so first off, I'm a really big fan of the band Haim, and I was super excited to see Alana Haim perform in this. And then we got all three sisters, and that was like a Spider-Man moment for me this year. In one scene, I flipped out. It was great. But so this
Same.
is kind of Paul Thomas Anderson at the this time last year. We thought this movie was called Soggy Bottom, so that's like how well he kept this thing under wraps, right? He first premiered the trailer for a screening of American Graffiti, which is a movie I hold very dear on my heart, and should be very telling with the type of movie that this is. This is an ultimate hangout, chill movie. But what Jared said is it's very dark in some ways, but it's not obviously dark, which is what I appreciated about it. This movie is kind of unflinching in the way that it shows the 70s as a problematic place because it was. There's casual racism in this movie, there's casual misogyny in this movie, and they make dark humor towards this, but it's always at the expense of people's bigotry. It's never at the expense of the people that it's making fun of, which like maybe I said that wrong. It's always the humor is always at the expense of the people who are the bigots, not the victims, if that makes sense. Hopefully I explained that correctly. Okay, anyways. But the big controversy of this movie is that Cooper Hoffman is 15 years old and Alana Haim is 25 years old. Like their characters, Gary Valentine and Alana, you know? And I think it's a very narrow view just to see this as a sexual relationship and that's it, because it's obviously not. And I think people have like confined relationships as just, oh, they have to be boyfriend and girlfriend and they have to date, you know? And Alana makes it very clear at the beginning of the movies that they aren't that. But what I think what's really interesting about the movie is it is about how people grow up at different speeds, but how people feel like they have to grow up at certain speeds. So Gary is this child actor. He is kind of this hot shot and he's got things together. He looks like he has things together. Meanwhile, Alana is just taking school pictures and really doesn't know what she's doing with her life. And so she feels like she is inferior to Hoffman in a lot of ways and Gary Valentine, which is why she's ultimately enamored by his success. And this leads to Hoffman definitely having a sexual desire for her, but she not having the same. Her relationship with Gary is different. Since she's 25, she needs to be like she's getting into the age where she needs to feel like she's validated in some way. And Cooper Hoffman pining or Gary, sorry, I just keep thinking of Gary pining over her the whole movie is her way of feeling like she needs to be accepted. And once he stops doing that, she gets jealous because she needs to find some sort of self-satisfaction. And the reason I put this as my number one is legitimately Alana is, if I was to put like a list together of the 5 most relatable characters in the history of cinema, she is way up there, way up there. I had a job for about 4 years that I recently left, where I practically worked with just about like just a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds, and then I was like 23. There's a big age gap, and yeah, I always kind of felt like I was on their level, and we would talk and we'd hang out sometimes afterwards and stuff like that too. But then there'd just be genuine things that happen where I just think about how maybe I'm supposed to be further along than I am, and it would make me feel really self-conscious, especially when they talk about certain things, and I'd realize that I just wasn't like I was at a different point of maturity. And there's one specific shot in this movie that really stood out to me because it was a moment where I was like I had this moment in my life, like just genuinely, not the specific, but the specific feeling. And there's a scene where Gary Valentine and his friends, it sounds weird, are humping gas cans next to this truck. And then Alanis is looking at them, and there's this moment, and it's just all told, no over explaining or anything, but just Alana Haim's performance as she looks over there and she sees it, where she just realizes that she's at a different level of maturity than these people are. And yet, totally at the end of the movie, what she figures out is that rushing maturity and rushing having to grow up is its own sign of immaturity, because people who do that end up hiding their own insecurities, which we see later whenever she gets into the political game. And so I think there's a whole lot of layers behind this movie that unfortunately people are kind of passing by because they're like, oh, it's problematic because it represents problematic people. And I'm sorry, movies have been doing that since the history of dawn of time. Depiction doesn't equal endorsement. Things are messy and life is messy, and these characters don't always get wins. And I really appreciate that about the movie as well. So like I love this movie to death. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I love its vibe. I'm probably gonna watch it like 5 or 6 other times because it's just like such an enjoyable watch. But it's also one that has an edge to it that I really appreciated. So yeah, I went on for a little too long. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, there we go.
It's all good. It's all good.
So, like licorice pizza, my number one is also about an age gap. And also, thank you very much for Licorice Pizza for taking a lot of heat of this movie, which is Red Rocket. So during this movie, I felt like pretty much any emotion possible, because like it is a very complicated movie with a lot of imperfect people in it, or characters in it. So it's relating to porn stuff, and which I'm not an avid fan of, but I am absolutely fascinated about the behind the scenes of it. And this movie does delve quite into that aspect, and it is interesting to just see this entire character study. And the character of Mikey Saber is very disgusting, and what makes it so conflicting is how charismatic he is, and it does make for a very fascinating watch. I do think it is quite important, and some scenes are truly heartbreaking, and it does highlight some disgusting things going on. And I actually have met some people like Mikey Saber, and yeah, it's a really interesting type of person, but yeah, pretty bad. Um, yeah, but yeah, you do get engrossed into those type of people's learning about them, but like, I don't know, it's very complicated, but like at the end of the day, these people are, yeah, gross.
Yep.
So the movie did have a very low budget, and I do think Sean Baker used this to like a very good advantage, because he clearly had full control of this film. And it does tackle a lot of things bigger budgets would not dare to do. And I don't think it's overly gratuitous, but just like dances around everything with quite a bit of nuance, to be honest. Also, it is very fun, and or not fun, but like just one of the funniest films I've seen. But also, it goes to some pretty dark places, but I think it balances the whole dark comedy aspect very well. It is shot on 16mm film, and it does fit the movie very well, and is one of the best looking movies of this year, I think. It's also just like editing wise, I think my favorite edited film this year, just because it went by so fast. It just made a 2 hour, over 2 hour movie feel like 90 minutes. But yeah, there's a lot I love about this movie. Even though like pretty much, huh?
Sorry, I opened something.
Oh, that's some good soup. Um, yeah. Oh yeah, it does play Bye 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 by NSYNC. And that's real. It's like the best move in any movie possible. So it is a very complicated film. I mean, pretty much everyone in the movie is very imperfect, but that's what fascinates me about the movie so much. And I think I'm curious to see what I will think about it upon rewatch. But yeah, for now, it's my number one.
Yeah, I pretty much echo your sentiments about the the age gap. It's very clearly portrayed as a very problematic relationship.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like stuff like that, like 100% happens. So
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Brett. Licorice Pizza is my favorite film of the year. And thank you for articulating in a way that I feel pretty much the exact same way. It really does understand the difference between romance and sexuality and friendship. It also shows that Alana is someone without much of a life, still living with her parents, working at Tiny Toes. Love that name. Who and Gary is so set up and gives her a life and job opportunities. Well, he has this crush that he can't really act upon. But my personal feelings on the film, the reason why I liked it to this extent, is that I am a 70s person. I watch a lot of 1970s cinema. That is the time in Hollywood in film that I am the most interested in. And when I watch movies that were made in the 70s, I'm transported. I'm fascinated. I love the stories. I love the independent aspect of it. I love how original they are and how free they felt. And it's like I'm taking a trip to the 70s. Licorice Pizza made me feel like I was already living in the 70s. And in no way I'm saying that this is better than every 70s movie. It's not. But it created a world that I just felt so comfortable in. A lot of the time I think to myself that, I wish I was kind of born in like the late 50s or early 60s and got to really grow up during this time period. I was probably not as socially accepted then, and you see that in this amazing restaurant scene towards the end. But there's something about it that fascinates me so much, and PTA creates an atmosphere that is so wonderful, so beautiful, so easy to relate to through the lens of a time period that I'm so familiar with and I've learned so much about, to the point where I ultimately felt like I was living in it, and I got lost in the movie. And the fact that you have these two newcomers who are cast along Titans, it just makes sense. Alana Haim, that whole dinner scene with Sean Penn, it just makes sense. And the Bradley Cooper truck scenes are among the best of the year. And a scene that does not get talked about as much is the interview / film agent scene with Harriet Sansom Harris. This scene is 5 minutes. And beforehand, it's in the process of Gary trying to get Alana to become more of an actress. And this scene was so fucking funny, because you have this woman, I like to call her interview lady, and she's ferocious. And Gary tells her just say yes to all these questions and you'll get the part. And she's asking her all about all these absurd things, if she can do them or not. She says yes to all of them. And one moment in this that I thought was the funniest was when someone called her on the phone. She picks it up, starts saying no, no, laughing, and randomly goes, Send My Love to Tatum. And I don't know why I found that to be so funny, but it made me die of laughter. And the whole movie is so funny too. It really is just consistent in its humor, and how natural it feels. All of the so-called celebrities and cameos, I heard a complaint that they're too cartoony and they're not well developed. But I think that's sort of the point, because that's how people who are trying to get into these businesses and these processes revolving fame in Hollywood in the 70s, these people were like, they felt like shticks. They were one thing. And it is just such a wonderful ode to all of this. I think obviously Alana Haim is marvelous. She plays such a complex, interesting, relatable character. And Tristan said earlier that Cooper Hoffman isn't getting enough praise, because he isn't. He is so confident and electric in this performance. I love it. And I don't know, it just made me very emotional. It overall does the 70s its justice, and I'm proud I can say that it is my favorite film of the year.
Tristan.
Put your mic.
For context, everyone, before we came on, Tristan tried to use a Yeti mic to block out the echo in the room that he's in, and it sounded like tenant ear rape.
Here's what I'll say. Don't buy snowball mics.
It's a Yeti. It's not a snowball.
No, Yeti.
You
Sorry.
sound better now. You sound-
Snowballs aren't as bad, but Yetis are pretty rough.
Snowballs are like way cheaper though.
Yeah, that's true. Get an AT 2020 and spend $300 like I did. Even though I'm
Right.
not using it right now for some reason. I apologize.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, I'm just using my laptop like right now. Anyway.
All right,
Yeah.
Tristan, you're number
So House
one.
of Gucci is honestly no, okay.
All right.
Starting over. Okay, so yeah, my number one of the year. It's been mentioned a couple times. I think it is not only the best movie of the year, but the best movie since 2017, since Call Me by Your Name and the Florida Project came out.
The Tinder Bar?
The Tender Bar, yeah. No, it's Joachim Trier's The Worst Person in the World. So I'm at the stage in my life where I'm almost finished school. I'm 23. I'm going to start going into the workforce very soon. And that is honestly very scary. Being at that stage, not knowing exactly what I want to do, but being on the precipice of being able to be my own person and have my own life and really get started. And it's scary and it's exciting. And I think The Worst Person of the World in the World really captures that time in your life beautifully, better than anything I've ever seen before. And I'm not quite at the stage that Renee Reinsbo's character Julie is. She's bordering on 30, but I did really relate to this film. What I love about The Worst Person in the World is it honestly feels like an odyssey. And I didn't expect this going in. I had absolutely no idea what this movie was going to be like. But it's told in 12 chapters, each chapter kind of focusing on a different aspect of her life, a different part of her mindset at the time. There are some segments that are funny, some segments that are very emotionally heavy. And it's just a wide array of tones, but it weaves them together beautifully due to the expert direction and expert screenwriting from Joachim Trier, who has been building up to this moment in his career for a very long time. He's put out some incredible movies, but this is his opus. Julie, as she mentions, she feels like the worst person in the world, and I'm sure everyone feels that way at some point in your life, where you feel like your decisions are affecting other people, and you're making these decisions that aren't the most rational, but they feel right at the time. And that's what Julie does a lot throughout this movie. There are multiple decisions she makes throughout the movie where you're like, why are you doing this? And yet you still care for her and you feel for her because she's someone really trying to figure herself out. She's lost, but throughout this movie, you see her starting to put the puzzle pieces together and transition from a young adult, someone who's very much doesn't have her life together, into someone who is at peace with herself and is starting to really figure out who she is. I think it's an incredible romance film. It's not your conventional romance film in a lot of ways, but because it's very much about one side of the relationship. It's about Julie. It's a character study. But Anders Danielson Lee, who has been incredible over the years and gave a really great performance in both Reprise and Oslo August 31st. He's just phenomenal here as Axel, her boyfriend, who is about 15 years older. And just like Licorice Pizza, the two of them actually, they share a lot of the same themes, but these two characters are in a very different stage in their lives. And Julie has to come to realize that Axel wants Julie to be at a certain stage, a certain point in her life, and she's not there. And it kind of shows that struggle when you have an age gap in your relationship. But it is a really beautiful portrayal of two people who really love each other and care for each other, but maybe find each other at the wrong point in their lives. There's so much of this movie explores. Again, I said it's not just a romance movie, it's also a slice of life. It's about Julie, it's a character study. But it's just, it's every year I look for a movie that after it finishes, I just really appreciate life, and a movie that just makes me feel alive. And that's what The Worst Person in the World did for me. It's got an incredible soundtrack. Again, Renee is just dazzling in this movie. She's incredible. And it's just full of life. It's an odyssey. It's a movie that I want to watch over and over and over again and pick up on the little minute details throughout the film. It works so well in its little segments, but it also works really well as a complete film. It's incredible that he was able to pull this off and make a film that is just, I just resonate with it so much, and I can't wait to see what Joachim does next, what Renee does next. It's the best film of the year in my opinion, and yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it yet.
So my number one of the year is from the master of mainstream cinema, Steven Spielberg, and that's West Side Story. As I've said many times before, I'm a fan of musicals, and this was just a movie that was firing on all cylinders to bring this classic musical, remake it for a new generation, put it on the big screen, and just tell this tale of two lovers that's just so cinematic, so much, I guess fun's the right word, just to see something on screen, especially in the first half, as it really gets into the nitty-gritty of telling this story of love amid a gang war in 1950s New York, and where New York essentially also plays a character in the story. It's just such a great movie. DeBose playing Anita, give her the supporting actress Oscar right now, and Rachel Zegler has such a bright future after this. The choreography is just so jaw-dropping too, especially just the scene at the gym where there's like, the best way to describe it is like a dance battle happens.
Yeah.
But it's just the way that it's presented, like, it's just so go go go, and that's also thanks to the editing that my jaw was on the floor, and it was just a movie that I couldn't get out of my head in terms of the performances and, like I said, the choreography, and just Steven Spielberg just being at the top of his game. So yeah, that's my number one of the year.
I pretty much agree with everything Jared has to say about West Side Story, or almost everything. But my number one of the year has been mentioned twice already as a number one of the year. And that film is not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm just gonna say it. It is licorice pizza. I won't lie. PTA is definitely up there with some of my favorite directors, as I would assume he is with most people. He has a very unique, distinct filmography, and in the sense that all of his movies are really unique and like distinct from each other. And Licorice Pizza is definitely like up there in that. As Brett said, this movie is in the similar vein to like that of an American Graffiti or a Dazed and Confused. It is kind of a hangout movie, but like it's very dressed in that shoegazy, like nostalgic look at the time period. And Licorice Pizza is not a glossy, like hunky-dory portrayal of it. It does say like bad things happened during this time. Like there's the moments of racism and certain things, but you also talk about the the political angles of it, and you have them talking about the oil embargo on TV and other things that happen in the cops and Gary, like the way the movie portrays these things. It doesn't portray them in a positive light necessarily. It's just like these two characters happen to have this chemistry. And I think really Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim, their chemistry is brilliant. And then I agree with Tristan that Cooper Hoffman has been pretty mostly unrecognized for the most part. Like I'm glad he got the Golden Globe nomination. I'm glad he got the BAFTA long list, but he's mostly being put in these young actor awards or breakthrough actor awards, which they're deserving, but like I would like to see him be nominated for best actor, and Alana as well. They're both so good. I agree with what Brett and Sam had to say, that this whole like relationship at the center of it, it's not a romantic relationship. Like even at the end when that happens, like that's not necessarily a romantic thing, at least not in my opinion. It's kind of like I'll let him have it moment right there. The ending is really kind of bittersweet in a lot of ways, and it's not necessarily like this movie is not like the whole movie is kind of bittersweet in that way, with the way it portrays the time period and the way it portrays this relationship and like being young or whatever. Like it's almost kind of looking at through rose-colored glasses, but at the same time it's not really. And it's nostalgic, but it's also like the 70s were kind of a shitty time in America. The movie doesn't flinch. It doesn't shy away from actually telling you that. And for that reason, I think the film works extraordinarily well with what it's going for. And I mean, it is my favorite film of the year. And I think that's probably going to stay there for as long as possible.
Y'all, we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
So
Boy.
while we were doing this, I calculated our Toy Box / Gold Derby horses top 10 of the year, like we do every year. Do you guys want to hear it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So here are a couple honorable mentions before I get into the top 10. Also, before I start, Brett, do you remember what the previous winners were?
Let's see. Last year it was Minari. The year before that, is that 2019? It was Parasite. 2018 was First Reformed.
Wow,
2017 was Call Me by Your Name.
cool. And I guess if we did in 2016, it would have been La La Land.
I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. So here's some honorable mentions that almost made the list, but not quite. I'll list off 5. Mass, Coda,
Mm.
The Power of the Dog, Luca, and Suicide Squad.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
What did make it?
So
Suicide. Wait, I guess some people have. Yeah.
at number 10 is Sean Baker's Red Rocket.
Let's go.
Nice.
Wow.
Number 9, Vroom Vroom, Drive My Car.
Yes.
Bro,
Yeah. Nice.
Nice.
good job, baby.
Number 8, this one might come as a bit of a surprise. Flea.
Ooh.
Nice. Let's
Yes.
go. Let's
Yes.
fucking go.
Number 7,
Fuck yeah.
Spencer.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
surprised me.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine.
This should literally be the Academy Award lineup so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine if Flea got nominated for Best Picture? Holy.
Yeah, that would rule.
I would fucking come.
Very, very direct.
Okay. Oh my god. All right. Number 6 is Last Night in Soho.
Boo.
Wow.
Wow.
Boo.
That's a good take.
Throwing
All right.
tomatoes at the stage.
Now we're in the top 5. Number 5, West Side Story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Number 4, The Worst Person in the World.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Number 3, Dune.
Dude.
Right.
Okay.
All right, here we go. At number 2 is Licorice Pizza.
Really?
And number
Wow.
1, with one more point, 47 to 46 points, is Come On, Come On.
Dope.
Hey.
Wow.
Nice.
Nice.
So it goes to another A24 movie. Nice.
So if I had put that below Flea, then Licorice Pizza would have won.
Yeah.
Sam changes his list real quick.
What?
I said Sam changes his list real quick.
I like that Mike Mills topped the list, though. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson has topped so many lists in the past, so let's give
Yeah.
Mike Mills his due.
I'm sure if we were around and doing this in 2007, then
Oh,
well,
actually,
maybe it's
2007
everyone
had
a
some
big.
really good movies.
It
too.
Is Ratatouille everyone's favorite here?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, for
Ratatouille would've
2007,
Well,
no.
there will be blood for me, but
top 3, Atonement, Juno, Across the Universe.
Oh.
Oh,
Hot Fuzz is 2007.
mine
so-
is Ratatouille, There Will Be Blood, and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Easy.
Ooh.
Well-
Yeah. Take out Atonement, add Diving Bell.
well,
Yeah.
this is for another podcast episode.
Can we please?
It's gonna happen eventually.
Okay, because you know
Uh,
why I want to do that here.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, thank you for listening to this very long, very unhinged episode.
It wasn't unhinged until like the
Uh,
last 5 seconds.
The last hour was really like.
Yeah, you
chill.
made it on the hinge.
Yeah.
No, I
George
liked the
I
last.
was good.
The
I
last half
really
was
good.
very calm and nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George. Are you announcing long lists?
Well, I was going to do
Not
that.
long lists, short lists. Sorry.
Well, I was going
It better
to
be
do that.
long.
I was going to do that after we stopped recording.
I thought you were gonna record them. I'm sorry. I'm a dumb.
No. But anyway, thank you all for listening to the Gold Derby Horses and this 8-person podcast. Maybe we'll do this
Nay.
again next
Yep,
year
boy.
but damn, it was fun. Thank you for listening. And this is gonna be fun to edit.
How long did
And-
the episode end up being?
Like 3 hours.
And bye.